this, I'm introducing Angel. He's our in-house credit repair guy. Angel, take the floor.
Okay, so my credit repair and my methodology is completely different than everybody else's. Everybody else, what they do is they do blanket disputes, and that by nature is fraudulent. But we won't discuss that aspect. I won't discuss any of that. Actually, I'll just discuss my methodology and why it works. But let me give you some qualifications on my side. I got a master's in computer science, and I got a year of law. I was also one of the top mortgage bankers here in the United States. In 2008, I was part of Obama's Mortgage Crisis Committee. So with that in mind, I've been reading credit reports for a long time. I've been doing credit repair since 1999. What we do is we do a pre-litigation type platform, and we do what's called a discovery. So if you've ever been or had someone close to you in a civil or criminal case, there's a thing called discovery. And discovery is where you're not making a stand on yourself or your client's behalf. You're just asking for the information from the opposing parties. And so I can have 90% of the people's negative mishaps removed just on that basis alone. But the other thing is, with my education in computer science, my field, we're the fathers of algorithms. And so I was able to emulate this proprietary algorithm from FICO. And so there's no denying in math. So we apply a mathematical model to every single file, and there's no file that we can't fix. The only one that can really sabotage the progress is the client themselves by continuing to pay late or have something in their closet come back up, right? Like a medical bill or a credit card that was charged off and then sold. And that's just the nature of the business, that it was sold. But once we do a pre-litigation type platform and we put everybody on notice, then theoretically they can't sell the debt again. So with the leverage of the law, we all know that if someone has a trade line that doesn't belong to them, then you don't need me. You can do it on your own. But the truth of the matter is that all these people with bad credit, it's their mishaps, it's their financial mishaps, because life happens, right? And I went through it myself in 07, 08. I thought I was a real estate guru, and when the bottom fell out on the subprime industry, I lost some money, and my credit took a hit, and my debt. So I've been through my system already twice in my life. But yeah, so essentially, I can get everybody to the 650 in the first 30 days. It doesn't matter where they start, because it's a mathematical balance to derive the score. So if someone has a 400, there's no progression where, okay, I'm going to do 50 this month, 50 next month. If I can balance that algorithm in one day, then the next day they'll be at a 750. So I have a 10-day program. Not every file qualifies for a 10-day program. My normal process is 45 days. I have a 6-month written guarantee on my contract that if their credit score doesn't increase, and I just have that for the peace of mind. Obviously, I just got through telling you that with the leverage of law and mathematics, there's no file that we're not going to fix or increase, right? But I do have it in writing in the contract for the peace of mind of the customer. And because this industry is a taboo industry and 99% of the people don't know what they're doing. There's a debate on whether most of them actually know that they're doing an injustice or wrong towards customers. I believe that a lot of people think they know what they're doing in credit repair, and they're doing these blanket disputes because they sell credit repair software in a box. And but as I was discussing with Peter, is they have no sense of reading credit reports. That they're not financially inclined themselves, and so how could they fix or lead someone to that degree in that direction? But my 10-day, I took a guy from NASA from Florida. He reached out to me, and we went from a 580 to a 767 in 7 days.
Whoa.
Yeah. So,
I
and
was muted. What I was saying on mute was, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah,
that is bananas.
yeah, well, and I'll give you a little bit so that y'all understand. There's not really any magic. And there's, back in the 90s, 2000s, people used to claim that they had someone inside that can fix their credit. And it's because at that moment in time, when you did a dispute, you were in the midst of the dispute, then it wouldn't count against your score. So if someone disputed everything, then they would see a jump in their score. And so then people started saying, hey, I have someone in the insight. There's no such thing as that, because there's 3 different bureaus, and the systems that communicate from the creditor to the bureaus, it's all electronic. There's no human interaction, right? And the dispute system, which is called eOscar, that's also, aside from inputting the actual dispute, there's no human interaction. So there's nothing like that. So I don't do anything illegal. One of the things that I am doing this time around that I hadn't done before is doing trade lines, but I'm not really advertising that to the general public, and I'm not really publishing it, but I'll do something like that, like for key people or people that like, for instance, Peter, which we're not doing this with Peter, but if Peter wanted to increase the score and we wanted to purchase trade lines, then I'm getting into that. But that in itself is a fraudulent business as well, to introduce trade lines from a stranger. If you do it from a family member, then it's not. So, but yeah.
How do you mean by trade lines when you say trade lines, Angel?
So the analogy that I give people so that they understand how the credit score works is, if you recall any grade from high school or college, and we'll just say like a science, if you take your science grade and we said that it was 40% quizzes, 20% homework, what is that, 60, and then 30% final exam and 30% science project. We'll just take the quizzes as part of your score, right? So if you have 2 quizzes and they're worth 40% of your grade and you aced everything, then at that moment in time, before calculating the quizzes, you have to be at a 60, right? If the quizzes are worth 40. So if you have 2 quizzes and one's a 0 and the other one's 100, then your credit score or your score there is an 80. And so then if we talk to the professor and we let them know that when you took that test or that quiz, you had a death in the family or you had some mitigating circumstances, and that if you would consider removing that quiz, then that's like removing a trade line. And so then if you don't have that 1-0, then you have 100 and you only have 1 quiz grade. So that means you'll get all 40 points. So you go from an 80 to 100 overnight, right? Okay. If say that he doesn't want to, then one of the things that you can do in college is that you can talk to the professor and ask him if you can do a written essay for half of the points. And so that's mitigating the damage of each trade line. And if we can get 50 out of the 0 or out of the 100 that you missed out on that, then now you go from an 80 to a 90.
Okay.
Now,
Angel, I'm sorry, just to be clear, you're talking to trade lines in either direction, right? Removing bad trade lines that are actually serving to lower your score, as well as the concept of piggybacking, where you're adding yourself on as an authorized user.
Well, I'm about to explain the piggybacking and the authorizing for Anthony. So now let's just say that the professor doesn't want to delete that 1 quiz grade and doesn't want to give you credit for the essay. So now you're stuck with a 0, right? Yeah. And the 100. So what can we do at that moment in time? Well, if we introduce 8 quizzes, now each quiz, instead of being worth 50% of the 40 points, each one is only worth 10%, right? Yeah. So if I introduce 8 quiz grades of 100 plus the one that you have, that's 9. Now that 0 quiz grade is only worth 4. So now you end up with a 96.
Is everyone doing the math right now? Because my brain already.
So the quiz grades would be as adding a trade line, piggybacking off a trade line, right? There's other ways to do it, but that's one of the ways that the other ways that you can do it is through secured credit cards and secured loans. Okay. And all this just illustrates how we can influence the algorithm or the calculation by adding trade lines, whether it's purchasing trade lines or adding them through the tools that are available through us, through the banks, right? Which is secured credit cards, secured loans, or these $300 builder up accounts. Now, here's a caveat, is that this is a presumption that all quizzes have 10 questions. But on that quiz, on the 8 quizzes, if one of the quizzes has 50 questions, then that 1 quiz grade is weighted as 4 or 5.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily have to add 8. We can just add one big one.
Okay.
Right. And so if some of y'all were around during the '08 mortgage crisis, there was an article when newspapers still existed. There was a front page article on this company out of South Carolina that was selling $100,000.
Hey,
Right.
Austin. Hey, Austin. What's a newspaper? Have you ever heard of that before?
It's
Hey,
I
Austin.
don't
What's a rotary phone?
Really?
maybe in my history books.
Yeah. Let me dust it up.
Right.
Okay, let's see.
So there was an article in '08 that illustrated some company out of South Carolina that was adding $100,000 trade lines to people. And so the average person has a $500 to $1,000 trade line. So when you add 100,000, that's like adding 20 quiz grades of 100. You know what I'm saying? And so their scores were going from 400 to 790 in one day.
Wow.
And so there were even the FBI during that time, there were questions on whether that was fraud or not. So here's where that comes into play, and this is where it's kind of gray and where I kind of reluctantly stayed away from it for so long. First of all, I was part of that FBI sting in '08. I helped them realize loan officer mortgage fraud. And so they about 90% of the people in Arizona went to prison, of the loan officers during the during the meltdown and stuff. So I'm real good with compliance because of that. But here's the deal, right? It's like buying a stolen radio at a parking lot at Walmart. If you buy a $1,000 Kenwood stereo for $50 and the guy's telling you, that his wife is in the hospital, he needs $50, and he never says that it's stolen, and you think that story is plausible, then you didn't commit a fraud. You didn't commit a crime. You had a bona fide purchase. But as soon as that guy tells you that radio is stolen, even if there's a mitigating circumstance that there's a death in the family, he needs the $50, you committed a crime of receiving stolen goods, right?
Angel,
the same thing with credit cards.
I asked you not to share that story about me, but I mean, thanks for at least cloaking my identity. But thank you.
Well, we're expunging that, Peter. So you're good. I'm just kidding. So that's the same thing with the trade lines, right? These guys that if you buy a trade line from someone and you need a liver transplant next week, you're never going to use that credit card. But somehow, if you get your family member to give you $100,000 credit card and you need a liver transplant the next day, you possibly might be able to use that credit card, right? So I think that's what the distinguishment is. But anyhow, so we might start offering that. Now with that, and I'll close that. Last year, I got into this thing with, I have a co-op with a company called Smart Credit, and the owners of Smart Credit used to run TransUnion for 30 years, and they're a credit reporting agency. And that's the reports that tie into my backend, to my software. But anyway, so they have a round table of credit experts. So I sit at that round table, and there's another one with attorneys and stuff. And so then with the attorneys, if someone, 100% of the collection agencies break 80% of the collection laws. And so for every violation, the client can get $1,000. So there's this round table of attorneys that they just talk back and forth. And so then if there's a major violation, they can call the attorney from the creditor, get $1,000, get $3,500 for $1,000 for the client, get $3,500 in attorney's fees for themselves, and get the thing removed in less than 24 hours. So I'm starting to implement a 48-hour credit repair.
So can you so let's now Angel, if you could do me a favor, can you now tell us in very short order what are your two major offerings that you offer?
Okay, so the one that I put everybody in, and I don't talk about my 10-day, and I definitely don't talk about the 48-hour because I haven't perfected that one. But there's a 45-day process, and that's $1,500 if they pay up front. If they don't, and that's what I wanted to talk to you, Peter, about how we're going to do with the clients. I have this other one where they pay $500 down and then $500 a month, but then it becomes $2,000. And then I started last year, implemented one with a title company where they pay me the $500 and then I collect the $1,500 at closing. So we add this as an adder, then we can potentially kind of do that so that we don't shock the clients with that big of a payment, and then it becomes an incentive for them to want to sign up. There was one of the clients that you sent me, Peter, that I was looking at, and your CRM is awesome because it was recording the conversations. And so there was this one guy that I'm going to call today, and his whole thing on solar, he had been through 2 solar companies, and one of them even did a upgrade on his panel. So I definitely needed more information on that one, Peter. But what was important about that conversation is that his mindset changed completely when they offered credit repair. And this guy was just like, he was kind of like on the pivoting on the edge, whether he wanted to go solar again or not, because he'd already been let down twice. But as soon as they talked about credit, he was just like all gun ho, like he wanted to get into that just because of the credit. But there was an implication on the conversation that it seemed like, and I don't know what y'all were doing with this guy from Dallas, but he presumed that the credit repair was not being charged initially to him. And then the conversation, then he just didn't respond anymore to some of the texts, and some of the conversations weren't on there. So, but yeah, so it and the good thing about people with bad credit, not a good thing, but the people with bad credit is they all stick together. And when one of them out of the group starts shining, then they feel compelled to share with everybody else, and then everybody else notices them. So when I was a mortgage banker, I love helping people with, I mean, I have a passion for the credit repair, but I also have a passion in the return, right? So when you help one, then you got 15 of their friends afterwards, after we proved our magic. So
yeah, everybody knows someone with bad credit, right? I mean, everyone families can use the service that you do. So can you tell us this, like right now, and I know this can change, but like, so what are your offers? You've got this 10-day thing, you got a 45-day thing, even a 48-hour thing, which I think you mentioned you're still kind of working on. So we'll sort of keep that on the DL for right now. But tell us about what your 2 basic packages are, and then we're going to work out something with the team to make it, beneficial for everyone and how we can actually execute this. Tell us about your packages.
Okay, well, the one is a 45-day. That's the one I was saying is $1,500 if they pay up front, or if they want to do it in payments, is $500, and then $500 a month for the next 3 months. So it would be a total of $2,000. I did start that thing with the real estate, and I can do it in the solar where the client pays $500, and then we'll do an adder for $1,500, and I'll get that in the back end. My 10-day, I don't have a payment plan for that one. That one starts at $3,500, and $3,500 is my fee. And then whatever else is in that package, it's to undo their mistakes. So that one example that I gave you from the guy from NASA, it ended up costing him $8,700 total. $3,500 was my fee, and the rest of the 87 minus the 35, whatever that is, 3785, so 5,200. That was to undo the mistakes that were bringing his score down. And I'll walk that case study, I'll walk it with y'all. So that particular situation, he had a daughter at UT Austin. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. Austin is an hour away from us. He had sent his daughter to UT Austin and co-signed for an apartment, co-signed for her car, and then co-signed for a credit card at the time that they were doing co-signing. They don't do that on credit cards anymore. But so she had three items that were written off, and he was a co-signer on them. And the reason why we leverage the laws on them is that there's a quirk in the system on co-signers, is that they don't send the bills to 2 different addresses. So it only goes to the main person. But by law, for them to affect your credit, they have to give you notice. And so they didn't give him the notice. He was still responsible for the debt, and that's where the 5,200 came from, is settling and paying some of the debt, right? And so that's how we're able to do the 10-day, right? So we put everybody on notice. We look at the leverage. We say, hey, you didn't give them notice. We'll go to lawsuit, or we could just settle out of court and remove the item completely. And so that's the example of the quiz being dropped completely from his profile. So those are the two packages. The 3,500, even in my real estate business, that probably constitutes about 3 to 5% of my business. Not that many people do. Not that many people could afford it, and not that many people need to get it that fast. This guy from NASA, he was buying a bed and breakfast from over there in Florida for 1.8 million, appraised at 3.2. So he needed his done that fast, and consequently, he sent me a $10,000 bonus.
Damn.
So
Nice, brother.
well, I refused it because I was like 1.8 to 3.2. I thought he was missing a zero.
Right.
I should have gotten $100,000. No, I'm kidding. I did take I take the 10,000 gracefully. I appreciate it. So, but yeah, that's the deal. That's the situation.
Awesome.
I've got a client for you right away, man. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you and I can chat offline. I'll get your number or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Very cool, guys. Well, I'm excited, man. We've got our guy in on the inside now. So thank you so much for sharing all that with us, Angel. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be part of y'all's
Yeah.
journey, guys. I'm excited and stoked.
Go.